Hey everyone, it's Jack. Snatch Game just happened and okay. I made a video last month talking about how much I loved season 17, and while that's still true, I'm scared right now. The judging of the season has only really gone downhill from here, with the first couple episodes judging being so good because the queens were the ones doing it, and I'm surprised I'm saying that. I will say for each week, the top performances, they are getting pretty correct. Even if it's a toss-up between two queens, the people who are in the top, they're like meant to be there. For the bottom and who's called safe, that's been a little more wild, and just this past week's judging alone was crazy from top to bottom. It really got me thinking about the state of Snatch Game because this was not a good Snatch Game, and it's really taken me out. How did we get to this point where it seems like the Snatch Games aren't living up to past ones? Do we just have rose-colored glasses on where the other one's not that good? Or has there truly been a shift in how Snatch Game is being run that has caused it to get worse? There's good performances in the mix, but for the most part, I think we've lost the plot of Snatch Game, and there's a couple key character choices that I can look to for where the structure started to fall apart. Before I continue, just know I'm going to get very critical in this video. It's no hate to the queens at all. If I didn't like their performance or I'm critiquing it, I'm not critiquing their drag persona. I think in so many other ways, Drag Race is the best it's ever been, but just with Snatch Game, it has not been as good. Make sure you like and subscribe, and let's talk about some good classic Snatch Game performances. A perfect easy example would be Dayla's performance as Maggie Smith on season 6. Maggie Smith is really recognizable as a person, especially at that time, but even if you didn't know who she was, you could tell the type of woman that she was by the way that Dayla was playing this character. You could tell that Dayla went into Snatch Game with a good knowledge of who Maggie Smith was and good ideas for what jokes she could do. I don't think she prepped like the citrus joke, for example.
I did think that it would be rather amusing if there were a libation flavored with citrus.
But she definitely had an idea in mind that she knew was gonna be funny. An older regal woman trying to make a joke in a setting like Snatch Game, the lack of actual funny makes the answer funny. She rolled with the punches, knew how to riff, and went in with an outline of jokes like this, but it wasn't too rigid of an outline for her to get messed up by things that Ru was trying to say. Compare it to this week with Lana, where RuPaul said the joke, "Is the bus still running?" before she could say it, and immediately she was thrown off because I think her outline was just too rigid. Or like on season 15 with Sugar and Spice and their canned bits, they always planned to do the fight between Trisha and Miley, and even if it was mildly funny, which it wasn't, where and how they did it was so forced in that it just took away from the whole moment. Impressions are a form of acting, and acting is reacting. It's extremely cliche to say that, but it does have merit here. I think queens are going into Snatch Game by prepping jokes, because when you really think about it, there's only 9 or 10 types of questions that are asked in Snatch Game, so having an idea of what you need to do in order to be successful or at least safe is good. But when you stick by that idea instead of reacting to what's happening, that's bad. It comes back to the concept of impersonation in general, which we'll get back to, but also just having a comfortability in a very awkward setting. I'm saying all of this with absolutely no experience in Snatch Game, so of course take my words with a grain of salt. From what every queen has told us, that room is silent and full of stress. It's only the queens, the guests, and RuPaul up there, and only 3 of the people in the room can laugh. So when you bomb, especially early, you get in your head, and that's why we see a lot of people not really being able to recover in Snatch Game. Finding comfort in that setting is extremely important because it helps you riff better and you just have more fun with it. And the best place to start is with the character's choice, like with Dayla. This character choice was something that she was extremely comfortable with, even being read for it, saying that she always plays the old woman. But in this specific scenario where you have to impersonate someone and be in this setting, in this character for so long, it makes the most sense to do something that you are comfortable with. Someone that I want to highlight from the modern age that I think could slot in really well in an early Snatch Game would be Lucy from season 15. We saw both Lucy's Dolly and Joan Rivers on the show, and it's very clear she has a background in impersonations. And that's the main reason she was so successful. She was familiar with impressions and picked a character that she was super comfortable with. There were some jokes that she reused from Joan's actual sets, but she also had a lot of volleys. And just having that familiarity with the character and a comfortableness, you can even tell a pre-planned joke really well. All of this brings me to another point about character choice, which is like the main issue I'm having with modern Snatch Game. The queens now are trying to do creative picks over just a solid choice. Jules is an outlier to this rule because her Bigfoot was really funny, but I think the main point stands here that she had a really great comedy set, but not a great impersonation, because how are you going to impersonate Bigfoot? Snatch Game to me is 60% being funny and 40% impersonation. I'm all for the sentiment of just make Ru laugh in Snatch Game because it breaks it down for the queens and relieves a little bit of the pressure. But at the end of the day, I want to see the queen with the best funny impression win, and that's why Anya won this week to me. I think Jules' jokes were wilder, but she didn't have to fit in a character nearly as much as Anya. Anya was almost as funny, but she was also giving us Eddie Murphy, which is an impression, which is the point of Snatch Game. 2 of the Snatch Game winners in recent times have fully dismantled what it it means to pick a character and impersonate someone in Snatch Game. They won the challenge because they were funny and it was a subversion of expectations, but I think it's just set a precedent for other queens to struggle now. The two queens that I'm talking about are Gigi Goode playing Maria the Robot and Trinity playing Satan. Gigi's counts a little less because yes, she was impersonating a robot, we get that. But as an actual character, it's not a character. Her card could have just said robot on it and we would have got the same thing. Nothing about the specific Maria the Robot character came into play in her performance. And again, it's a great robot performance, super funny with the physicality. There's just not a single answer here that distinguishes her as this specific robot character. And Trinity is much the same with the subversion of what you expect the devil to act like, but instead she's playing a flamboyant gay guy. I've seen people say that these character choices are actually good because it's like a blank canvas that they can kind of paint themselves. I've probably even made that point at some time in the past on my channel. But as I see us getting more and more out there with character choices, it's put into perspective just how much of a problem this is and how much we need to reel it back in. I say this now because I've seen performances like the Gold Tooth Fairy or Cupid. These are also blank canvas characters and the choices that were made, oh my god. A couple characters that I don't think should have ever been allowed are Maya's Shaquita or Roxy's Tasha Salad. Once again, I love that Maya got the praise here and she was funny, but again, it's much closer to a comedy set than it is an impression. This choice right here still makes me really worried for future Snatch Games because someone getting praise for a made-up character I just don't think is in line with what Snatch Game should be. If Maya did this for an improv challenge or a roast, I think it would have been an incredible choice. But to paraphrase the great Kiki Palmer, this is a great character but the wrong scenario. In recent seasons, I don't think Drag Race casting has really valued people's impersonations and just the impersonation art form. And maybe the recent Snatch Games are a microcosm of drag as a whole or how Drag Race has affected the show, because I feel like there is a really big downswing in impersonation drag, even though that's been a staple of the art form for so long. To be honest, I think Drag Race is at the forefront after thinking about it more. Drag impersonation was so big in the past because often that's just the only way that people would get booked. Someone like Chad Michaels specialized so much in Cher impersonation, and it was a novel, interesting concept to watch. A person who's committed so much of their life to a persona impersonating someone else, seeing someone so good at that, it's so incredible. But now with queens getting more and more success and notoriety based off of their own drag persona, it's caused a downtick in celebrity impersonations because why impersonate someone else when you can now market yourself very successfully? Drag impersonations will always be there. It's something that queens will keep in their back pocket, but I think the pocket is getting looser and looser as Drag Race transforms the drag community. This is the youngest cast that they've had on Drag Race, averaging about 26 years old, and that doesn't inherently mean that they're going to be bad at Snatch Game, but comedy differs between generations and as you get older and have been doing drag longer. So I need Drag Race to start casting older queens again. I also think with this season, we've fallen into a cast that just isn't really good at the standard Drag Race challenges. I loved the challenge where they were filming themselves, and a lot of them stood out as really funny in that challenge. But I feel like as creative control has been taken away from them in these other challenges, they have not been really flourishing as much. This Snatch Game felt really short, and each of the queens only got like 1.5 or maybe 2 answers. I couldn't really pinpoint as to why it was so short outside of, oh, there's 11 queens, which is already crazy. But it might reveal that the Snatch Game just wasn't very good, so they were kind of scrounging for content. And that's how we ended up with someone like Lexi Love being in the top for not doing a good job in the Snatch Game, but making it funny. Yes, I did think Lexi was funny, but I think this placement alone is going to set a precedent going forward. It's just losing the plot for someone getting praised for not even properly telling a joke. A moment I love from season 16 Snatch Game is when Tsunami fucks up the answer to a question.
And then when I need another tooth, I break it.
You keep your dollar bills mixed with your teeth?
No.
And it makes RuPaul laugh, but it would be insane if she was in the top for this. Lexi's commitment to the bit and staying in character even though she knows she's flopping, that's funny, yeah, but they could laugh about it and give her a low placement, or even call her safe. I just think this high placement is insane, especially because there are 4 queens in the top this week for some reason, or maybe Lexi's placement is in like this purgatory, like they felt like they had to address it, but they didn't want to put her low because the other 3 were so obviously low. It truly makes no sense to me, but I think there was just a little too much praise and it makes me a little nervous. The rules of Snatch Game are no longer doing a funny, good, accurate impression of a celebrity. It's now just turned into kind of play a character and make Ru laugh. On paper, yeah, easy, make Ru laugh, that's fine. And the good impressions are still gonna rise to the top. So after talking about all of this, has the overall Snatch Game started to decline? I thought while starting to record this video, yeah, it has, but there's always been bad Snatch Game performances. In a lot of ways, I do think we have rose-colored glasses on because we only really remember the great performances performances and the really iconically bad ones. Snatch Game has always been a great divide of a challenge separating the true contenders from the rest of the crop, but after all the points I made in this video, the shifts are happening, and maybe Snatch Game's not in a decline, but it's holding less weight in the competition. There hasn't really been an agreement in the comments on where people pinpoint the decline in Snatch Game, but the idea that the challenge is holding less weight does kind of make sense because the past 3 winners of Drag Race have not really done well in Snatch Game. Sasha did okay, but we didn't get much content from her, and Willow and Nymphia, we don't gotta talk about it. The hype has just really died down for this challenge, and maybe it's because we've seen so much of it. It is really hard because outside of Snatch Game of Love, there's been very little change to happen to Snatch Game since season 2. The thing is, the format isn't bad, but the way they've been casting as of recent, a lot of the queens didn't grow up watching Match Game. Even I didn't grow up watching Match Game. So along with the lack of emphasis on impressionist drag, a lot of queens' references to the idea of Snatch Game is not Match Game, it's just Snatch Game itself. Maybe in some ways, Snatch Game has become flanderized. It sticks so much to one characteristic of itself, so maybe that's why it doesn't feel so fresh or iconic. This is just some food for thought after I recorded initially, because my thoughts started to change after I read more comments. Here's some random ways that I think they could fix it. Cast older queens who maybe have a background in celebrity impersonation. That's like an easy big one that I think could be really successful. Start to reel back in a lot of these more abstract choices into just celebrities, maybe even asking the queens to come with like a reference video, or at least have a reference video for the characters they're doing in their audition tape. No more made up characters or fictional characters that don't have a lot of content to them. What's crazy to me is that the only restriction for characters right now is no copyrighted characters, which makes sense, but I'm pretty sure there's still a rule in effect that they can't do Drag Race queens, which is such a weird place to draw the line, because if like Maya can make up a character or Roxy can do Tasha Salad, why can't they impersonate fellow iconic competitors anymore? Sam Star did good this week as a pageant mom, but I think it would have also been funny if we saw her impersonate Trinity. At this point, with the way the queens have been choosing these characters, I don't see any reason why they would have this rule. And there's been some really funny queen impressions in the past, like Nina doing Jasmine. Judging from here on out, I think there needs to be more of an emphasis on how good impressions are, because past winners of Snatch Game will always have an effect on who people pick in the next season. People didn't start doing male characters until Kennedy took that risk, and I feel like we've definitely seen a major uptick in fictional characters after Gigi and Trinity. So with Anya winning, maybe that will help the choices for next season, but also Lexi and Jules were in the top with things that I've been critiquing, so you never know. I do think that Snatch Game will be great again at some point. It'll go in waves, I think there's innovations, and I think it's all gonna work out, especially if they go back to the drawing board, which I'm hoping they're doing after this season. I love being critical, but I hate being like overly negative, so I hope I didn't come across that way in this video, because ultimately it's all just my opinion. I have a lot of passion for both Drag Race and just comedy in general, so that's why I can go on a huge rant like this. So I hope y'all appreciate it, and discuss below what you think should be changed about Snatch Game. Thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe, and I will see you soon with another video.